Uh, Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Elie Noam of Columbia University Graduate School of Business. I'm the director of the Columbia Institute for Teleinformation, and I'm a professor of finance and economics at the Columbia Business School. CITI, the acronym, has nothing to do with the financial institution. CITI has been around for about 37 years and was the first research institute and centers at a major business school dedicated to the IT system around the world, not just in terms of its technology, which is more in the engineering field, but more in its business aspects, policy aspects, and societal aspects. And so we've been around. We have published many books. I will show you a few of them. Most recently here, 2 books on streaming video, the next generation of television. Before that, 2 textbooks on digital and media management, which you might find also interesting, as have many other people. That these textbooks have had last year, 2020, 1.9 million downloads and 1.8 million downloads respectively. So lots of people are interested in them. Here's a book on digitized labor, also fairly recently, 2-3 years ago, Telecommunications Revolution. And here one on worldwide media ownership, consisting of 30 countries, many tables, many data. And so this is what we're trying to do. Provide for business and policy discussions a kind of reasoned analyses based on extensive data. And one of our projects has been the Digital Financial Services Observatory, which was started by Leon Perlman, who is on this webinar. Leon has been a pioneer and is a world-renowned thought leader on the issue of digital financial services. We were fortunate to obtain the financial support in this project by the Gates Foundation. Thank you, Chris Calabia. And the most recent step in this work by the NVF, New Ventures Fund. Thank you, Yoel Luongo. And so we are kind of trying through a large number of webinars, white papers, conferences in person, to reason, to argue, to analyze, to convene, to think through what the implications are for creating digital services around the world, in particular for the underdeveloped and underbanked parts of the world. In that endeavor, we are supported, and the key people here are, and will speak to you, Keith Bowie, who has been a leader here, and Mike Wexler, and of course, the Associate Director and Executive Director of the Columbia Institute for Teleinformation, namely Jason Buckwitz, also supported by Corey Spencer. So this is basically our team, and we're kind of working together with people all around the world. Some of them are on this call. We thank you, we welcome you, we like you to continue, and new people on this call might also find this an important, useful thing to join with us. And so without further ado, I'd like to pass on to Jason Buckwitz, our Executive Director. Go ahead, Jason, and thank you for coming, all of you.
Thank you, Elie. That was a great presentation, and we thank you for welcoming everyone. Today we have a really exciting opportunity to show off our new alpha version of our RMF tool. We've spent a lot of time building this out, and don't want to take up too much time, so I'd like to introduce Keith Bowie, our cybersecurity expert and associate research scholar, to walk us through the development of the RMF and to show off the tool that we've developed. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Elie. So welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. glad to have some of our old friends back, and for those of you who are new to the DFSO, welcome. I'll give a quick overview for those of you who are new of what we were doing on the ARMF, if we call it the Actionable Risk Management Framework. As Ellie mentioned, this was part of our grant from the Gates Foundation, and we've done it over the last kind of year or so throughout until January 2021 for about a year. And our mandate was to create we call it an actionable risk management cybersecurity framework for use in digital financial services. What we wanted to do was differentiate from other risk management frameworks in that this was aimed at digital financial services and it would be process-based. As Ellie mentioned, Dr. Leon Perlman founded the DFSO a few years ago, and Leon did extensive field research prior to us developing this framework. And we believe we've come up with a good and solid knowledge base of processes that can be used to protect yourselves and also advice on how to react to potential threats or incidents. So, as I said in the past, present, what we're doing during this grant period from MVF was, one of the feedbacks that we had was that while there was a lot of great information in the framework, and the framework itself was validated by both DFS and cybersecurity experts, we called them our expert panel reviewers, and we also had some organizations within the DFS ecosystem review the documentation, and we had favorable feedback from everyone. Not that we want to stay still, we obviously believe that content will have to be changed with changing trends, etc. But you know, for the moment, we seem to be in a good position from a content perspective. One of the recommendations to us was that we made it easier to use. While there was a lot of good information, it was kind of spreadsheet based, and it really was a reference material. So we had been kind of requested by a couple of organizations, could you make it a little bit more interactive? Which is what we've done and what we'd like to show you today. So just a quick kind of look at the components we have. So we are currently developing a risk assessment, which was something again that we were asked to do by our expert panel reviews. At the moment, we created a kind of straw man based on organizational size, process capabilities, and kind of organizational structure as to how you could assign yourself a maturity level. Our framework is based on 6 cyber maturity levels, 1 being the lowest, 6 being the highest. And our intention was that we kept as much of the framework requirements constant across all maturity levels and only changed the processes applicable to a particular maturity level and the threat response applicable to a maturity level, so that we could have consistency within the framework. So we're currently developing the risk assessment, which will be a kind of logical decision tree based on the cybersecurity domains that we've covered. For the purposes of today, we have a kind of small pre-questionnaire that we believe will give a decent representation of where an organization stands, and we'll look to build on that. As I mentioned, we've got 6 levels of maturity, and the 2 main components that we'll look at today are preventative processes. So what do we recommend an organization does to protect itself, given the capabilities of that organization? And these are split across 10 cybersecurity domains that, for those of you familiar with cyber, will be very familiar with. We've built this on top of international standards. There's no reason for us to reinvent the wheel here at all. And we hope we've put our own IP on top of those international standards. The threat matrix itself, we've grouped into 9 different groups of cyber threats containing these individual threats themselves. We have a generic response for each, which could be perfectly applicable to an organization, but we've then also kind of dug down a little bit into, what would a particular maturity level do, and what could a particular actor do, given that there are different types of actors within a maturity level. So, as I mentioned before, the threat categories and process domains. On the left-hand side here, you'll see our 10 domains. Again, should be very familiar with you. And on the right-hand side, there will be our 9 threat categories with their definitions. And just, this is quite hard to read. The video materials will be posted on our website for download later on at your convenience. So the platform itself, so we have developed this internally, and it's you know, at the moment, as Jason mentioned, it's our very first iteration of it. So you know, please bear that in mind when you see it. What we're looking at is some general navigation around the platform, so you can use it as just a reference tool without completing any risk assessment. So you can see what we believe, you know, a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 organizations should do. We'll look at a little pre-assessment, so I'll answer some questions and we will get a maturity level of this. For the purposes of a demonstration, it will be level 4. And we will look at, you know, how we can review a couple of the preventative processes, one in asset management and one in governance, and how you can actually look at our reference processes and then enter your own details. And we'll look at doing that, and a similar thing for the threat matrix, and we'll look at an insider threat for the same maturity level. So the use cases we'll cover is the pre-assessment questionnaire. So you can see here down the bottom are the kind of questions we'll answer. And if I go off kilter, you might not get a level because this is very specific for this time since it's alpha. The preventative processes, so asset management 01 is like creating a hardware inventory for all your digital assets. And you can see here there are 3 kind of processes that we look to cover. So as I mentioned before, the capabilities, principle, and the process goals, that's consistent across all levels. These processes here are the ones that will change. Okay, so we'll have a couple of processes to look at. Governance, there's 1 process to look at here for policies and procedures. And for the threat matrix, we're just looking at an insider threat along the supply and service chain. And as you can see, as I mentioned before, the threat, the vulnerability, and the repercussion of a successful attack, that's all constant. The generic response is what we can do from a high level perspective, and that may be perfectly adequate. And then for a maturity level 4 response, we split it into DFSP, bank, payment provider, and an MNO. Okay, so without further ado, let me just swap over to my share. Okay, could I just check Jason, can you see the tool now? Yep. Okay, great. So this is our tool, and it is a web-based tool that we have created within the department. As you can see, there's just the homepage here. There is the assessment, which has got the list of questions that we'll complete. There's a threat matrix, which lists the 9 different threat groups. And then there are the preventative processes, which will list the cybersecurity domains that we'll cover. So let me just complete the risk assessment so we can get to it. Actually, sorry, let me just show you how to navigate a little bit, sorry. So for the preventative processes, if I want to go in and have a look at asset management, for example, we have 8 different capabilities within asset management, okay? From creating an inventory, really around all digital asset inventory and how you would do that according to the capabilities of your organization. So just AM01 is creating the hardware inventory. And here you can see we have the capability, the principle, and the process goal. If I look at level 1, you will see the processes that we have. So you can just cycle through on the right-hand side for level 1, level 2. And for some of the lower maturity levels, we believe that not all the process goals will be applicable. So we've recognized those as such. But as you get through the more sophisticated levels, you can see that we have processes developed across here. So without doing a risk assessment, and this is consistent across all of the domains, you can just use this as a reference tool. No problem, you don't have to enter any data. You could just use it as a reference tool. Similarly, for the threat matrix, if I just have a look at kind of Wi-Fi, for example, we have rogue access points. Oops. Again, you can see that we have some generic data, and then for each of the individual maturity levels on the bottom right-hand corner, you can see there would be potential different responses that you could do. And they may be consistent across organizations. So as you can see here, levels 1, 2, and 3 wasn't really applicable. 4, 5, and 6, really the same kind of response that we would look for. Okay. So and as again with any threat, any preventive processes, feel free to cycle through and look at the data. The assessment itself, let me get this in so we can get out to an assessment 4. Excuse me, maybe a little bit monotonous for you, but my apologies. We just wanted to show you the actual risk assessment itself. I won't put any organizational details in because we don't have that as yet. So as we go through this, what our actual risk assessment will make it intelligent, so that we will ask questions. So some of this organizational stuff will be there, but we will also ask questions around you know, the capabilities within each of the domains that we have. And our intention is to look at, or to make this not onerous to actually do. So we'd expect the lower levels of maturity to answer a handful of questions to be able to determine their maturity. And we look for the high levels of maturity, really not to have to answer tons of questions. I would hope that we could be able to keep this down to something that's within the small, kind of less than 50 questions for the highest level of maturity. Okay, so preview our answers, and then if I've done this right, you should see level 4. There we go. We've got a level 4 process coming out. Okay, so going back to what we're looking to do. So for asset management, we go into AM01, and this was your hardware inventory. So for process maturity 4, you can see these are the suggestions that we have made. Now again, we've written these to a level that we believe it's a good level of detail that gives you a generic process that could be applicable to your organization. This is our suggestion. You may do something different, and this is why we were kind of looking at, if this is based on, if this is not applicable to you, but you are a level 4 or whatever level you may be, put in what you actually do. So this box here, we can just put in whatever text you want to do. Can be as brief or as complete as one, and then you could use this as a kind of reference tool. You can also upload files. We've limited to PDFs and spreadsheets just now, but you could upload anything you want. So submitting, and you can see that your company response is here. What we will be looking to do is, as you enter more responses, because obviously things change, we will have a full log of all the responses that you have entered, all the processes applicable to you, so that you can have a look at history, and you know, hopefully we'll be able to put in some analytics tools to help you go around it. The second one we were going to show here, sorry, was on governance, which was governance 06. So that was again, cybersecurity policies and processes. So we got something like that. We can submit, and there it's saved again. You will see that we've got save draft here as well, so you don't have to do this all in one go. If you save a draft, it will not commit, and it will let you come back and complete your data later on at some point soon. Okay, so along the similar threads, going into our threat matrix, we will look at Insider, and we will look at Insider 02. As you can see, we've been talking about best how to display large amounts of data, so I'll get on to how you guys can help us with that later on. So again, from the threat concepts here for level 4, you can see what we recommend you do, and we can put something as here. So similar thing, you can upload documentation again. You could even upload your incident response plan if you want to. Submit, and it's logged. Okay. So that's really what we wanted to show you today. Very basic, we know, but we're kind of quite proud about how quickly we managed to make this out. We had our last demonstration, our last webinar with you guys back in April, and we've managed to get this created quite quickly with regards to what we want to do. So what we'd really like you to help us out with is, you know, some feedback. So what we'd like from you is, you know, volunteer to be part of our evaluation group, providing feedback on the content, look and feel, functionality. You know, we really like this to be a community application. And you know, we have no vanity around this. We have no vanity around the content, around the look and feel, the usability. We'd love this to you know, you to be part of making this a success. So when we'd like it, we want to kind of get this nailed down by the end of July this year, and we'll look to release a new version every kind of 3 weeks or so between now and the end of July, changing requested features. Now, you know, we'll provide a mechanism to submit any changes required or suggestions, and we'll look at those suggestions on, you know, as to how we can and when we can implement it. So if you would like to help us, what you'll get is you'll get your own instance of the platform. So we will actually create a sub instance based on our hosted by the DFSO that will be usable only by you. So we will work with you. Jason will set you up, someone in your organization up as an admin. You can go in there and then play around to your heart's content. Our goal at the end of July would be a fully functional, and I've called it prototype here. Hopefully it's more than a prototype that we'd look for next phase funding. And if we can get something that's you know, excited the user community and they feel is usable, our aim is to actually kind of go in and put in quotes, industrialize it using some you know, some organizations that can actually help us do that, and look at ways to host it securely. It is secure just now, I should say, so that would maybe a wrong phrase to do. You know, making sure that we don't fall foul of any data privacy or data sovereignty laws. So how do you enroll? Send an email to me, which is kb3171@gsb.columbia.edu, or Mike Wexler, mw3189@columbia.edu. So that's our presentation today. I'd happy to take any question if anyone would like to ask anything now. If not, you have my email address.